Hey guys, welcome to Finally Clicked, the podcast where we discuss business, leadership, and personal development. My name is Margaret Smith, and I'm the Director of Operations for Pickett Street Properties, a real estate team out of Bothell, Washington. And I'll be here every week with our owner and team leader, Jesse D. Moore. We'll be digging into concepts and ideas that have helped us both personally and professionally. And you'll also get a chance to hear from local and national experts that we know provide massive value to get to the point where it all finally clicks.
Margaret Smith.
And Jesse Moore.
We got to jump into this. We got to get going.
We do.
We got stuff to talk about.
We got a lot of stuff to talk about. It's going to be a fiery, vulnerable episode.
I know. We don't have Kleenex in here.
No, we probably should,
Oh,
actually.
my
That's a
goodness.
royal mistake. I'll just use my cloak.
Do you think people are guessing that I'm the crier or you're the crier?
I would hope people know us well enough 6 or 7 episodes in now to know that I'd be the one to cry.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but you have shed a few tears over the years.
Never.
But they're small enough that I can usually catch them with my cloak. Or you
Right.
just catch
They're
them with your t-shirt.
microscopic. Mm-hmm. I cry on the inside. All right, today we're going to talk about our favorite failures. You know, Margaret and I we care about this, and we want to do a good job, and we want to talk about things that matter. Mm-hmm. And we were texting back and forth last night, and this is the one that seemed to resonate the most with both of us. Mm-hmm. And so as we wrap up 2019, and as we launch this podcast, we thought it'd be fun to go over some of our favorite professional failures.
I feel like they're professional / personal.
Well, you can't.
Because
they
intermingle, right? Yeah.
Yeah. No
I
one,
mean, if it gives you guys any sort of inkling, I'm actually kind of nervous about this episode.
No, I am too. I have butterflies.
You did what?
I have butterflies.
Yeah.
I'm anxious.
And we totally are taking into consideration all of your suggestions too. Just so you know, we're just thinking about the best way in which to execute on all the different topics that you guys are suggesting. So just know that that's all of your suggestions are on a whiteboard in my office, and they're not going unnoticed.
All right, favorite failures. Are you starting, or do you want me to?
Oh gosh, you go first. So we each have 6, and 5 of them of our own that we came up with, and then 1 is from the other person about us.
All right, number 1. The story is called Hole in My Head. And this goes back to before the last housing recession. So this would have been 2008, December of 2008. Mm-hmm. I believe that's right. Maybe it was December 2007. But the market had shifted. I had listings. I did not have a team like we talk about today. I was pretty much a single agent. Mm-hmm. And I have always been a listing agent. I've just always been better at listings, and that's what I was doing. And the market, it was fun and easy because I got licensed in 2005. So for a few years, it was fun and awesome and piece of cake. And then Washington Mutual closed their doors in around June of 2007. Mm-hmm. Washington Mutual is based out of Seattle, Washington. We felt the ramifications of that immediately. Mm-hmm. And so really, it was only 6 months of that slowdown, but it was enough of a change for me. And I had enough listings, and I was carrying enough listings, and I was working too much. And I went on vacation to Hawaii in December to this rainy island called Kauai.
The most beautiful island of all the Hawaiian islands.
The wettest island in Hawaii.
It's my favorite.
The palm trees were inverted like umbrellas in a windstorm.
It's a little extreme.
It's not extreme. It's actually what happened. I was holed up in a hotel room playing cards with a 2-year-old, and
Perfect.
Anyway, after I was on vacation in Hawaii after 6 months of a tough market, and I wanted to stay there. Mm-hmm. I basically wanted to grow my hair out, become a surfer, just not come back to real life, not come back to my listings and this terrible real estate economy, which I had no idea what I was in for, right? Because this was just the beginning of it. And so I was referred to some people, some sellers, who wanted to sell their home, and it was listed with another agent. It had not sold with that agent. So they asked me to come and interview for the property, for the listing. And when I got there, this is right after I got back from Hawaii, I had a bad attitude. I had a cold, and I had to you know, what it's like to travel on a plane with the cold. Like, I was
and
miserable.
Kids. Yeah.
And I was in a bad mood. And I showed up, and I've said many times before, I can't pretend, and it's true. Because when I showed up, I was surly, and I was ornery. And when they asked me if I wanted the listing, I literally said, I need another listing like I need a hole in the head.
From their perspective, oh my gosh.
And I just rolled with it. I did my presentation, and I didn't even think about it. And then I do a 2-step consultation. So that's the first consultation is with them at the house. They don't live there any longer. And so we leave, and then I do my evaluation. And then I call to schedule the next appointment. And they were kind of wishy-washy, like I could tell, like about setting up that second appointment. But I know what I'm doing, right? So I got the confirmation for the second appointment. Got the appointment. I go over there. I'm in a totally different mood. I'm happy. I'm up. I'm upbeat. I'm ready to get this listing. Help these guys out. I go all the way through the valuation process, and they look at each other, and I can tell they're like, now what do we do? And I'm like, what's going on? And they're like, do you remember what you said at the last consultation? And I kind of sunk in my chair because I realized, yeah, I said to clients that I was interviewing for a listing that I needed their listing like I needed a hole in the head. And so, yeah, I recalled that with much chagrin. And they go, yeah, that kind of struck us as odd. And I go, yeah, I can see that. I go, listen, I'm sorry. This market is tough. Sometimes it gets the better of me. But I absolutely want your listing, and I know I can sell it. And they consulted for a minute, and they said, okay, you get the listing. Like, wow. I created the objection.
And you overcame it.
And I overcame it. And it's kind of funny. Now, whenever they refer people to us, they tell that story. And so when I meet with anyone they refer, they've already heard the story.
That's amazing. I
go, did they tell you the hole in the head story? And they're like, yeah, ha, ha, ha. And they turned out to be great referral partners for me, A-plus clients that send me transactions on a regular basis. And
so had you forgotten that you'd said that when you were doing the CMA and doing the processing after that appointment? Did you forget until they mentioned it?
You know, this is a story I tell that I never cared what I said because I didn't think anyone was listening.
Okay.
Until I realized people were listening.
I remember you saying that.
And then I had to be careful what I said. Mm-hmm. And I pride myself in being transparent and honest, you know, to an uncomfortable degree. And I think I just wanted them to know, hey, this is tough, this is hard, and I want to help you, but, you know, buckle up, because this is going to take a while. And it did. Man, we listed that for $400,000, maybe $425,000. I think $425,000. And 9 months later, it sold for $355,000. And I did open houses like every weekend by myself. And
that's a good story.
It was challenging. But so I try not to create my own objections anymore. I try to let them come up naturally.
That's such a good story.
And so my first favorite failure is telling clients I needed their listing like I needed a hole in the head.
Usually you definitely clear all the objections out right away. I can't even talk right now. All right, my first favorite failure is the Pickett Street Loyalty Club. And for those of you that know us, you know that we were, I think, one of the first teams or companies to try this out. And the Loyalty Club was essentially if you bought or sold with us or referred us a client, you were put in the Loyalty Club, and we sent you a gift every other month for a year.
Well, can I give you some context? Give everybody some context?
Yeah, you're good at that.
I was in a room with Gary Keller, and he was encouraging the agents in that room to start to try to figure out how they could make a membership economy out of their business. Meaning, if you think of Costco or Amazon Prime or AARP, how can you create monthly residual income in your real estate business? And no one really knew the answer. and I don't know if anyone's come up with a good answer, but in the moment, I decided we would get rid of closing gifts. And when someone closed with us, they would get a year membership to the Pickett Street Loyalty Club. And that membership would give them, every other month, we would ship them a product in a branded box with branded tissue paper. But it would be handpicked by us, by me, by members of the team. There would be some correlation, some story that humanized the gift.
And a letter in each box.
And a letter. So it became 7 of our 33 touches. And I thought the idea had merit, and we ran with it. And we knew when we did it, it was a huge commitment. It was ordering branded boxes, ordering branded tissue paper, ordering a lot of the same product, like
ahead of time.
It's
a financial commitment.
So the financial outlay was a lot.
And then the manpower and the hours to put in, we had to commit between Sarah and I, on average, 3 to 4 hours together in the conference room packing, so that's about 8 hours.
And it's kind of like farming, where you can't just do it one time and measure the results. We knew we would have to do it for at least a year before we could determine if there was any value or return on investment. And we ended up doing it for 3 years. So I just want to give everyone context.
No, that's great context. And I love this when I thought of it last night, because I was thinking, what have we worked on that didn't necessarily succeed in a massive way, but I feel like that's one of my, and so it's hard for me, again, like I was saying this to Jesse earlier, it's hard for me to talk about this like these are failures, because I have such a positive mindset. And this probably sounds like bullshit. I was telling Jesse earlier, but everything to me is just a different door opening. So the PSLC didn't work out. Something else happened because of it.
Are you saying when God closes a door, he opens a window?
I mean, that's one of the sayings, yes. But yeah, so none of these are really failures to me, but PSLC came to mind because we worked really hard at it. I'm super proud of the process that we came up, because Sarah and I made it so efficient that we were like a working machine. I mean, we were our own warehouse. We had the branded boxes we got a great deal on after much research. We researched the tissue paper. We researched the gifts. We came up with some really unique ideas, and what came out of that is what is our closing gift now, which is a group of our favorite things.
Well, and it's not just our favorite things.
It's the clients' favorite things.
We surveyed the clients, and it was very clear what items they preferred and loved receiving. So now what we did is we took the best gifts out of the loyalty club, and that's our basket, and we deliver. It's our gift we deliver that a week or two after closing.
And that still gets mailed to them.
It's all of our favorite. It's like Oprah's favorite things, only it's Pickett Street's favorite things. And yeah. All right. My second one is my resting bitch face.
I feel like a lot of people are going to identify with this. You are not alone in the struggle.
Well, and I want to be clear. Like, I might have resting bitch face. But it's more the fact that people think I'm surly, a curmudgeon, stoic, ornery. And at any given time, that can be true. It's more an illustration of my lack of patience than anything. And so if you catch me in the beginning of the day before lunch, I think I'm more approachable.
That's your best
happier,
time of day.
Right?
Yeah.
And then, as the day goes on, my willpower fades. My ability to pretend fades. My ability to not show that I'm highly impatient fades. And it's been interesting to me because you and I are radically transparent with each other. So, like, if we get feedback that says Jesse, I don't know, Jesse's isn't a cheerleader, Jesse isn't, I don't get good energy, whatever the case is. Like, I hear that. And you don't, like, shield me from it.
No, because I think that's, again, part of, I think what's really great about us is we don't hide those things. And if you want growth, you need to hear those painful things. And the fact that I can tell you that, actually, I'm so proud of that. Like, I'm proud that you can take it the way that you do so well, and that I take... It's because I'm not good at I haven't been good at taking feedback before, and critical feedback in the past before very well. And I think I've gotten better at that, as have you. And so it's critical if you want to grow together to be able to talk to each other about stuff that comes up like that.
Well, and there's an evolution to this. Before I had a coach, before I had a team, I was a solo agent, and I would put my head down and I'd do my work. And I would walk from my office to the fax machine. I was doing a lot of short sales, and so I'd walk back and forth to the fax machine all the time. And I would see other agents, and I'd see people in the office, and I just preferred not to engage them because I was doing my job. I had things to do. And I learned from that. And then I got a coach, and then my coach told me to be nice. And I said, this isn't about being nice. This is about productivity. And he goes, yeah, well, let's try being nice and see how how that affects your productivity. And really what I learned from that is that people confuse being surly or being, I'm going to say, an a-hole. They confuse that. They misread that in people that are driven. So if you're highly driven, you're highly motivated, and you're highly purposeful, people will misinterpret that to mean that you are selfish or that you don't have time for other people or that you're surly. And so that was absolutely what I was doing. I was like, I am here for a limited amount of time. I don't want to be here all day. I want to get my job done, and that's it. I'm not here for social hour. I'm not here to talk about your puppies or the weather or any of those. And that's the other thing. I like depth in my conversations. I don't like small talk. I never have. In high school, I was known as a man with many friends and few acquaintances because I just don't understand the point of talking to somebody if you're not going to get to know them. And so all of those things lead me to me, and I am ornery. I'm a Montana ranch kid, and I was born in a horse trough of orneriness. Like that's the land that I came from. That's the kind of men it raises. It's like the grass that grows there. It's sparse and full of minerals and hardy, and it'll survive just about anything. It's really hard to kill. And you know what? It's not green and lush. It's harsh and I don't know. I don't want to make excuses for myself, and I try to be better every day. But it is a failure of mine. It has limited my recruiting, where people get the wrong perception of me, or they have a limited interaction with me, or because they're dealing mostly with you and you're a ray of sunshine, and then they may interact with me for a second, and I don't operate in the same way, and that can lead to confusion.
Yeah, I mean, we could probably make this a whole other podcast too, because I know there's other
You want to
owners.
make my resting bitch face a whole podcast?
I know there's other owners and actual other EAs that have that same tendency, and the reason I find this interesting is because I do think you've really worked on that for sure. And part of my job, I saw it, and when I was coming in, was for me to be that PR person. You don't need to be. And so it's actually reassessing other people's expectations and helping them to understand that when you run a successful business, you actually need to do things during the day. Like, take me to happy hour. If you want to socialize with me and talk to me, take me to happy hour. Don't expect me to, because we run our business like a business, which a lot of people don't do. A lot of people, if you're not successful in real estate, I've realized, do not have a schedule, do not work it like a business. And we work it like a business. And I think there's been a lot of clarity around that over the last couple of years about why we are the way we are. And we're very focused between the hours of 8:30 to 5:30, really, because we run it like a company. And so I think it's definitely, when you have somebody like me that's very much like the PR person, happy sunshine, and then they match that with you, they're like, well, there's got to be a reason why Margaret's still there, right? With resting bitch face. I understand it, and I look beyond a lot, and I think sometimes people in society, just in general, there's a piece to it that's like, sometimes people are too sensitive. They need to step out, and they're thinking about themselves. Step outside of yourself. Whatever that look is on someone's face probably isn't about you. It's not always about you.
Well, we seem to be in the era of the snowflake. Like, this is the snowflake's time.
Yeah.
And I am not.
Yeah.
That's not. That's challenging. For
So
me.
it's a juggling act. There's always like give each way, and so.
All right.
This is a good one. All right, my second one is over budget. And this one is not business related, but kind of is. I was $21,000 over budget on my second duplex. And so this is one of my favorite failures because there's no place I've lived that I have loved more. My duplex that I live in currently was about $240,000 in rehab, and I love every single half inch of that place. If I could work out of there, I would be happiness and bliss all of the time. I literally walk inside.
So you like the gold?
I love the gold.
Hardware and the gold.
I love the gold
faucet.
Every decision I made was the best decision.
And the shiplap.
I don't know how. The
everywhere.
shiplap,
and
the
fireplace.
fireplace.
And the fireplace
And the
that operates on a remote control.
Balcony fence that my agent or my contractor said it probably wasn't the best idea on. I love every inch of that place. And so this is one of my favorite failures because, yes, I failed and I'm super happy about it.
I don't think that's the point. I think you are happy about it.
I'm so happy. I love my $1,200 faucet. I love my $1,200 faucet.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And how do you feel being stressed out?
I don't like that part of that. I don't like that part of it at all. Every single month.
Because you overspent and now your budget.
Now I'm going to have to make up for it. But you know what? I decided during the project when I lost control of the budget because actually it was because of the circumstances around the house that I could not use the same budget that we had when we started. So I had to take a risk. And I decided that I would work extra hard after the house was done in order to get what I wanted. So I took that.
You're very proud.
I'm so proud. I'm so proud. It's a massive
we're talking
project.
about failures, so
I'm proud of my failures.
I think you need to be a little more
sad about
on
it?
the nose about the failure part.
Oh, okay, all right. Yeah, I mean, $21,000. That's going to take me a while to make up.
Okay, here's my point.
Okay.
You stressed out.
I did.
No. Just I'm painting a picture for you. Okay. So shut your yap for a second. You stressed out on the daily. What's the ramifications of that?
Stress on my body. On
your coworkers,
on my coworkers,
on your environment.
Totally, yeah.
Right. And it's gotten better over time because you've found some solutions to some problems. But the truth of the matter is, your budget is higher than you wanted it to be. Your monthly budget, your housing budget is higher than you want it to be, and that does impact you. So there was a failure that has ramifications to this day.
Sure. God, this is so hard for me. I don't see it as a failure because my monthly input into my duplex is actually still lower than what if I were paying on my own, like living in an apartment on my own and all that. See, this is how my mind works. It automatically twists positive, Margaret, positive. It's like, it's crazy.
Okay, so but next time you go and do this, do you think you would do the same thing?
No.
Why is that?
Because it was a failure.
Why is it a failure?
Because ultimately, the results that I were going for did not happen.
I mean, ultimately, you were unable to refinance.
Yeah.
Like your desire was to refinance this.
Yeah, and get out of the PMI.
Get out of some credit card debt, get out of PMI. And because of overspending, you weren't able to do that.
Correct, yeah. I also hit the market at the wrong time for the appraisal and everything. That was a bummer. Yeah. So no, it's definitely, I expected to come out of this with $30,000 left over.
But you got a $1,200 gold faucet instead.
I did, and I love it so much.
I'm glad that you like it. All right, number 3 for me, firing too slow, not getting rid of people fast enough. And I thought about this morning, and it's true 100% of the time. And I don't know that there's ever a time when someone could say, you know what, I fired that person just in time. Because the reality is maybe they shouldn't have hired him in the first place, or they ignored some signs or whatever. Yeah. I can't think of a single person we've fired that we couldn't have done it sooner.
No.
And so I think we're going to protect the innocent and the guilty in this episode. We're not going to name names. And I'm not looking for people to try to figure out who we're talking about or anything else.
No.
Because this is really about us.
There's no point.
It's about us and the impact on us and how we responded. But we've had some epic fires. You know?
Yeah.
And that means we had some epic mistakes in hiring people. And I just realized every time, and I'm getting better and better and better. And I think we had a conversation today about a potential recruit where we're trying to see on the front end a mistake in hiring somebody.
Yeah, I feel like these have been epic for a reason. Again, there's me coming in with the reason. But we learned so much from each one of them. It's like, I feel like it's saving us from future
Yeah.
From it happening over and over again.
And just to give people an idea, someone that I fired not soon enough ended up taking clients from us. I ended up having to sue them and dealing with that whole mess. Like, you just don't want to be in court. You don't want to have to hire a lawyer, and you don't want to have to do all that stuff.
No.
And it, you know, I was on the winning side, but it still took time and energy and effort that could have been avoided. And you know, the truth of the matter is I care about people. Even though I'm a curmudgeon and an ornery person, I love people. You know that. Anyone that's on my team is on my family. Is in my family. Yeah. And I'll go to bat to them. I have their back. I will lose money with those people. You know what I mean? Like, to protect them. So I've learned to pay attention to the signs and to act quickly.
Yep. All right. My number 3 is helicopter parent. And by that, I mean, I had to let go. One of my biggest failures for sure was trying to make people on the team do things, or trying to control other people on the team, I think is how I put it. And so there's been different times, and thankfully not anymore, but I let go of it about 1.5 years ago. And I just was getting to the point where things weren't going the way that I thought they should be going. And then I tried to slowly, like, implement change in an inappropriate fashion by, like, doing whatever I could to have consequences if people didn't do things. Or, you know, when I think it's probably something everybody goes through where you feel like you can motivate people to do certain things, but ultimately the person has to want it. And people just didn't want it. And I didn't realize that. So I worked, and what it did is it made me, that's the definition of insanity, where you bang your head against the wall about a problem over and over and over again, and nothing changes. Well, I had to learn that. And so when I finally let go of that and just started focusing on what I could control, which is me, that's when I really started to excel.
Yeah, you can't motivate the unmotivated.
No.
And I hated this part. I hated you figuring this out because I wanted you to stay in your lane. And this is something that I heard Corinne Wynn speak yesterday. And she taught, someone asked the question about working with your spouse, because her and son work in real estate together. And she said one of the things that they have to remind each other is to stay in their lane. And if Corinne gets outside of her lane, son goes, hey, you're out of your lane. Or hey, stay in your lane. And so you care so much about so many things in our business, which I appreciate. But you can't care. There's certain things you can't care about.
Yeah, no.
It's not your job to do, and it doesn't serve you.
So hard to let go of that.
You know, you'll.
I want to win so bad.
You'll bitch to me that this person isn't doing their calls, or isn't doing scripts practice, or isn't doing jumping jacks, and it affects you.
It does,
and that's the first thing in the morning. And then you get surly and ornery, and your claws come out, and it affects your entire day. And I was like, can you just focus on you, and we'll coach these people?
Yeah, that's why I have director of sales on my stop doing list, because that's not my job. Not going to do it.
Well, we got to coach people up or out. Those are the two options. Either level up or level out. But we can't have it affecting your
energy. Doesn't make sense
on a daily basis. My fourth one, not inspecting what I expect. You can call this a $15,000 mistake. I last year, I had an employee who I think was highly capable. She learned things quickly, and so I think I probably abdicated the position before she was ready, just because she showed ability. And so she made a mistake on a contract. We had multiple offers. When the dust settled and we had mutual acceptance, we had a binding contract. She made a mistake on a form that was going to cost our seller $10,000. And I looked at it from every angle to try to unwind it, undo it, without costing me money. It became very clear that there was no way to do that. And so I just had to tell the client that I would make up the difference. And realized for me as a business owner, the person that made a mistake, she was an agent, but she was salaried. So she's an employee of mine. The mistake was made because I took my eye off of training. I didn't train her effectively enough to know how to fill out a form correctly. Because I don't like to be bothered. And everyone does this. You do this. Everyone does this. Everyone tries not to bother me. And so by not bothering me, it cost me $15,000. So I had to pay $10,000 to the seller. And then because other agents were involved in the transaction, and I didn't want them to not get paid because it wasn't their fault. So I paid commissions on money I didn't receive on top of that. And in all, it cost me $15,000. And it cost me $15,000 at a bad time. Mm-hmm. Like it's funny. I was talking to Son Win about this yesterday, how everyone just assumes I'm rich and have a lot of money. But if you run a business that has a budget of $65,000 a month, you only need a couple bad months before everything changes. Mm-hmm. And so losing that money hurt. I felt it for sure. And it taught me a valuable lesson. I did not effectively train that person because I chose not to effectively train them. They made a mistake that cost me $15,000. Mm-hmm. And that's a valuable lesson.
It's a good one. All right. My fourth is not believing in me. And so I had written this down, not accepting my abilities, embracing them, owning them, and leading with them. And then this was the one that one of the ones you suggested for me was not believing in me. And so I thought it was interesting that we both came up with it. But yeah, I think for a long time, I've known what I'm good at, and yet I haven't really believed in what's possible with my abilities. And so there was a lot of self-doubt and lack of confidence for really the first 2 years. And when I started believing in me and believing in what was possible, it was because I was trying things. And as I tried them, some worked out, others didn't. But the ones that did worked out really well. And it gave me the boost of confidence each time I needed to start to really believe. And then part of it, too, was just me deciding, I can do this. I can do whatever I want to do. I will make it happen. And then it began to happen. So that's a big one, though. That's one of my favorite failures, because I think if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't be where I am today. And there's nobody I believe in more than myself.
Yeah, I mean, you've come a long way. And I wrote that down for you because when you first joined the team, you were living with your parents. You didn't think you'd ever make more than $50,000 a year in salary. You never thought you'd own a home because without being married or with somebody as a single woman. And all of those were not true. Mm-hmm. And it took you living with your parents, and I know you love your parents more than anything, and I know they love you. But it was not an ideal situation for you to be living there.
No.
And that caused a lot of stress, and I'm very sensitive to that, right?
Yeah.
And you had a lot of limiting beliefs at the beginning.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's something I'll be forever grateful for with Pickett Street and with Keller Williams just in general, because when I went to that first conference, just like 5 months after I started, my whole world was opened up to what other people did. Like you talk about the guy that you met in the elevator the first time you went to family reunion, and he was talking about how many units he'd done that year as a real estate agent. And just how your mind was blown open. And I think I went there, and I had never been to a conference on that scale. I've worked in industries before where we did workshops. We didn't, not conferences like that. And when you're exposed to what other people do and just what's possible, it's amazing how that can change your perspective. And so I came back from that, and I came back after that first year at Pickett Street realizing I'm totally underutilized. I'm completely underutilizing my abilities, my strengths, what I'm good at. I've just been in a mediocre position. And I didn't realize it. I don't know what's possible. And I had felt so stuck for a long time. So, yeah, this is my favorite, number 4.
Yeah, you went from that to we're gonna have dinner with Gary Keller.
Yeah,
Gary Keller's coming to my house.
We are. Yep.
All right, number 5 for me. My last self-admitted one is Not replacing distressed sales.
That's a good one.
In 2010, I added an investment division to my team. This is before Margaret. And we helped people buy at foreclosure auction. I did a lot of short sales. I was doing some REO. And we rode that wave through 2013 when we did 202 sales, about $56 million. And then right after that, distressed properties started going away. Short sales went away. REO properties dwindled off. Auction properties, hedge funds came in, took over the auctions. And I knew it was going to affect my business, and I just thought I should double down on resale, which I already did really well. And so doubling something that you're already very proficient in is not a great solution. You know, if you're kind of good at something, you put some work into it, you can double your output.
Yeah.
But if you're really good at something, doubling that is a lot harder. And I wish I had pursued probate, divorce. I wish I would have pursued a different avenue to still have a diverse business. And these are lessons you learn. It just happens. Things happen, and you make a decision, and over time, you get to find out if it was a good decision or a bad decision. And I just wish we were more diversified. And it can be challenging to think outside the box and to be diversified. If short sales and REO and that distressed land came back, it'd be easy to pick those things up again, versus me working with builders is challenging. I have a big personality. They have big personalities. It's harder for me to work with builders. But I could have figured it out. I could have worked harder on being creative and inventive and finding a solution.
That's a good one. I think most really successful teams, too, when you think about the company, they're diverse in some way. So actually, I think our diversification came after that. It was more teaching and doing things outside the box like that. But we just haven't been able to replace those units, the unit count yet, with doing something different. So my favorite failure is not speaking up. And I've definitely obviously gotten much better at that now, being on a podcast and speaking and teaching a lot more. But this kind of goes along with our conversations that we've had before about intuition and not trusting myself, not trusting what I saw. And when I first started, there were some hires that we made that I didn't agree with. And like I've talked about before, I spent the first 2 years really sitting back and learning the business. So I was really trying to be I am humble anyways, but sit back and say, Margaret, you don't know this business. You don't know it better than Jesse does or better than anybody else does. But there was one hire in particular that you made, and I did voice my concerns, but I didn't voice them loud enough. And on here I wrote, I should have screamed louder. To me, screaming is just speaking loudly, just so you guys know. But there was the one hire that you mentioned that you made that you ended up not firing soon enough, but was still fired pretty quickly, and then ended up having to sue. I ended up falling in love with. So if there's any way I could be much more vulnerable on this podcast, I don't know what it is. But I fell in love with him hardcore. And after he left, we continued to see each other. And that created a really hard conversation between you and I, and some really hard moments for about 2 years after that. And why I put this down as a favorite failure is because I don't think there's anything in life you can do to plan for who you're going to meet. And I don't regret it. And at the same time, we learned, talk about having something between us for a long time that was super difficult and made every other conversation that much more difficult because this was always there. And so I stressed myself out to the max because I had extreme loyalty to you and to the team. But I also had this other person in my life. And this is one of my favorite failures because I learned a lot about myself. And I also learned what I wouldn't do again. I don't know. There's so many places we can go from that. But speaking up in particular about people and telling you what I think, because I knew from the beginning, and I had told you that he was an entrepreneur and he was very determined, and it wasn't going to mesh well.
Yeah, so, when people hear us talk now... Sorry, I need to take a drink. And then I spill it. When people hear us talk now and they hear how well we get along and how we think in similar ways and stuff like that, they don't have the context.
No, they don't.
Of the 6 years prior to this, right?
Exactly.
And most people don't know that you dated a person that used to be on the team that I sued and won.
Very few people know that story.
That you were dating him while I was actively suing him.
Yep.
And
he was only on the team for 4 months?
Yeah,
4.5 months.
3.5, 4 months.
But still.
This is someone that, I don't want to... We're not going to name, like I said, we're not going to name names. It's not about that person.
No.
But this is someone who stole from me, stole from my business, stole clients from us, monetarily affected us. And there's not anyone on the earth I disliked more than this person. And the person I love and like a lot is in a relationship with that person while I'm suing them. So, talk about... You guys, everybody here. You want some homework?
Homework?
Find out who the Rainmaker hates the most, and then go on a date with that person, and then go have a relationship for a while.
You know what I'm just thinking as you're saying this? Maybe what this is also a good example for people to learn a little bit more about me, because you don't really know me until you get to spend time with me, because I'm very slow on letting people in. This is an example of the stubborn side of me, because despite the circumstances, I was going to do what I wanted to do. And there was people that supported me in that I should be able to date whoever I want for sure. And obviously I did. And there was a loyalty that I had to the team and to you. So to keep that line straight, those areas separate was super difficult, but that's an example to you of some behind the scenes of what Margaret's personality is like and just how stubborn I am. I don't think people understand that part. Because they meet me and I might appear meek, I might appear good-mannered, I might appear, and I am those things, and I can be super fierce when I want to be, when I want something. So maybe this gives the people, actually I didn't even think about that, like a little bit of a glance on that part of me, that when they think I'm not a high D, or not a high, super driven person, well, there you go.
And I think they probably don't know how gracious and understanding... and benevolent.
Well, what were you going to do? Let go of one of the most talented people on your team?
That was hard, man. Honestly, we couldn't talk about it.
No, and I think that was a good
we made
role.
A decision. I don't know that we talked about it. Like, hey, we can't talk about this.
We did at one point. We did.
But, I knew there was no winning if I came at you. I knew that if I said, hey, you can't see this person, or hey, whatever, I need you to modify this relationship, I knew that wasn't going to win with you. And at the same time, it really hurt, because it felt like you were choosing that person who hurt my
Even though I was
business.
Staying on the team, working really hard, doing all these other things.
Sure. But this is someone that stole from the team. I wanted to shut him out of my life, and I couldn't do that because he was in your life. And we got through that. I don't know how, but we got through it. And so what's the lesson?
Well, that was just an example of a story of I probably should have said more at the beginning, because I did speak up. And I remember you guys, because at the time we had a couple other people that were in charge of hiring. And I remember you guys saying, this is a trial. If it doesn't work out, that's okay. And I just remember thinking, no, I know this is not going to work out. I can see it black and white, super clear. Sometimes with hires, there's a lot of gray area, and so you treat those first 100 days or whatever as trial. But I knew with 100% fierceness and everything that it was not a good idea. So I need to make sure that, and I do a much better job at this now. I tell you my opinion. I tell you how strongly I feel about it on a scale of 1 to 10 or whatever. And then I step back, because sometimes we don't come to consensus or the same decision. And you ultimately, as the owner, have that ability to make that final decision. And I have to be whatever you decide on, if I don't agree with it, when we present it in front of the team and we move forward, I have to be 100% behind it. I need to, I need to be able to help rally the troops for that.
Well, and I've gotten better about listening to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it goes both ways.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
I mean, in that case, and this is a foolish mistake, but in that case, so I had someone who was helping me lead the team, and a CEO. I hired her to be CEO, and we were doing the commitment interview with him together, and he had red flags, he had objections, and he's supposed to be signing the paperwork. He's supposed to be saying, yes, let's do this. And he had objections, and then she and I are both such fierce salespeople that we just wanted to win. Mm-hmm. And so we just objection handled him to saying yes. Mm-hmm. And as soon as he did that and we had separation for 30 seconds, we're like, did we just make a mistake? Because it feels like we were just fighting to win, not fighting to make a good decision. Mm-hmm. And learned that lesson too. Well, thanks for being vulnerable, Margaret.
You're welcome.
Thanks for that time period. That was a fun time. All right. So we're going to suggest failures for each other. Mm-hmm. Okay. So Margaret is amazing at implementing. She's amazing at taking an idea and making it come to fruition. And one of the things that you've done in recent history is the Pacific Northwest Admin Retreat. So 2 years in a row, you get this harebrained idea that you want to host an event specifically for admin where you can kind of feed into them. They get to hear from great speakers. They get to stay at an amazing location with great food, great times, and it's time for growth and connection, and it costs money. And so the first time you did it without really asking me for permission, because that's not really how you work, right? And I know that, and you ask for forgiveness more than permission often. And in this case, I kind of knew about it, and I was like, what is happening? Like, why is she spending all this time doing this? When is she going to talk to me about it? And eventually you talked to me about it, and you figured it out as you went. I wish you would have involved me more because, I think I have good business sense. I have good business acumen. I know how to think about profits and expenses and plan appropriately. But I was letting you do what you wanted to do. And then the second year, we knew it was going to happen again, and you had experience under your belt. And I said, you know what? Okay, let's just talk to me this time. Let's just stay on the same page together, and I will financially back this. And it was a challenging winter for us, for the business, and I kept getting surprised with expenses for the conference. And they weren't small expenses. We're talking tens of thousands of dollars overall. And at times it'd be hits of several $1,000s when I wasn't planning on it. And so I told you, as we talked about this today, separately, I have a pretty good idea. It's just like an intuition about money, where I know how much we have, I know how much we need, I know how much we don't have. And so at any given time, I have a pretty good understanding of where we're at and what we can do and can't do, and whether I should be worried or not. And you put me on tilt because I kept getting these bills unexpectedly, and I'd already promised you that I would back it, so I couldn't go against my word. I had to do it, but it caused a lot of stress for me, and so I just wrote down retreat. It's an amazing thing, and I wouldn't want you to not do it. And this is kind of what I talked about before, where people don't want to bother me. So I end up having to deal with it later, which is stressful for me, is that in you not wanting to bother me or not wanting to involve me, it stressed me out.
Yeah, so one of our solutions for that was have a separate account in the bank where the money that comes in from sponsors and from the girls that attend, it goes in there, and that's where the expenses come out of.
Yeah. And that's an easy fix.
Totally.
So.
All right. And then the one that I came up with for Jesse was leaving the business to Margaret. And by that I meant, which actually has to kind of go back around to the time around the retreat and right before that, where we talk about this. I don't know if we've talked about this in the podcast yet, but when you were going through your divorce and separation, and then the divorce was over and you were trying to figure out kind of your personal life, you moved your focus from the business to your personal life, and your personal life went up eventually, as you spent more time there figuring out what was happening, but the business went down, and I felt like it was left to me. And I can't implement, right? This is also at the time where I was being a bit of a helicopter parent too, where that was kind of starting, because I felt like I didn't know exactly what to do. And so I mentioned this morning when we were talking about this, that it's one of my favorite failures, because you did have to heal and you had to work on your personal life. And this forced me to figure a lot of things out about myself, about the business, about being a leader. And I wouldn't be where I am today if it hadn't happened. So that's why it's one of my favorite failures. And I think now, looking into 2019, we're talking about a lot of these things, and we've discovered what I don't like to do, what I don't want to do, what I'm not as good at. And we're really talking about how to make sure that I don't step back into that again. And same for you.
Yeah, I mean, this one's hard for me to talk about with objectivity.
Mm-hmm.
I remember during that time frame, again, in a room with Gary Keller, and I had the chance to ask him, and I asked him very bluntly, how do you focus on your business when your personal life is in turmoil?
Mm-hmm.
And really, to help people without getting deep into it, I'm sure we will at some point someday, but I essentially had to reinvent myself, because who I thought I was not who I am. I think I felt like I had acted in contrary to my nature for most of my life to make other people happy.
Mm-hmm.
And in trying to stand up for myself and in trying to figure out what I believed in, resulted in separation and divorce. And I didn't expect that. And
no, that was never your plan.
And then when I had to focus on this new lifestyle that I didn't anticipate, which was being divorced and splitting time with my kids, and now providing for 2 households.
Mm-hmm.
Man, it took a lot of energy, and I was exhausted from my personal life.
Mm-hmm.
And so focusing on my professional life, I would say there were fits and starts. It wasn't bad the whole time. I had moments of brilliance, and I did good things, but I wasn't consistent. I'd show up, and then I wouldn't, and then I'd show up, and then I wouldn't. As far as, I went to work every day, but I wasn't acting like I was before.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you wanted the director of ops title, and by God, I was going to make you earn it. And so a lot of those things, I think, are my fault. Some of those things are my fault, that I didn't prepare you or I didn't involve you. And others are your fault for trying to take too much on.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't ask you to do half the things that stressed you out.
Mm-hmm.
That was you trying to be proactive and,
Mm-hmm.
Trying to be more than you needed to be.
Mm-hmm.
But it was, again, it was something we had to go through to figure out.
Yep.
This is a different podcast, man. Jeez. Before, we're usually up, and now we're going through failures, and I agree with you. I love your positivity. I'm way more pragmatic than you. So when I revisit some of these things, it makes my heart hurt a little bit.
Yeah.
But
doesn't it make you feel good to think about who you are now? And you would not be the Jesse that you are. You wouldn't be the reinvented Jesse that you are if this hadn't happened, if a lot of those things hadn't happened. But this is, again, I wrote down this quote because this is how I identify courage is going from failure to failure without losing enthusiasm, by Winston Churchill. So, my enthusiasm, absolutely. I can take it from one thing to the next, and I'm like, bring it on. But I wasn't always into failure, though. By the
way, you should do a Google image search of Winston Churchill. That's the face of enthusiasm right there.
The face. Oh, my gosh. But I wasn't so much into failure, though, before as I am now. Now, if I'm not, if something doesn't go wrong, I'm like, what have I not tried?
We major in failure.
Yeah. So, but I'll bring the enthusiasm.
Via Williams said something yesterday that was pretty funny, as far as like, and Via, I hope I can say this without rebuke later, and it was it was a private conversation. But one of the things she had to decide is, did she want failure to be her brand? Because she goes around the country and talks about failing forward. How she lost her team and she had to rebuild it.
Yeah.
And that's she really had to say, hey, do I want failure to be my brand?
Yeah.
Do I want that to be the soapbox that everyone knows me for? And I understand that thought process. I understand that concern. But the reality is, and I'm not afraid to fail because I know that's what successful people do. Successful people fail all the time. And we never know when we're going to, it's like digging for oil. You missed 99 times. You don't know that you're not going to hit it on the 100th hole.
Yeah.
And so that's how I imagine that I know if we dig enough holes, we'll hit oil.
Yeah.
And just because we didn't hit it this time, doesn't mean that we should stop. And so I just think it's healthy to reflect on these things and for us to have a conversation. This is the first time you and I have talked about that person that I sued and that you dated. I mean, it's the first time we've talked about it in any detail, just the two of us, honestly. As far as what it was like for that time period. You don't agree with me?
Well, I was thinking, I guess, in public or on a platform like this, I feel like we've had smaller conversations in person, one-on-one.
No, I think I was conditioned not to talk about it. I'm not kidding.
Funny. Huh. But yeah, I think, we've set the platform for this. And some of the feedback that I've gotten so far from people, including like my mom, is the level of vulnerability and things that we're sharing. People don't talk about, especially specifically relationships like that happen on teams and happen in companies. That kind of stuff doesn't get talked about. And I go through and I check with myself, am I okay talking about this? Knowing that person will probably listen, knowing that my family will hear this, whatever. And I always check myself, and I am okay with it because it's a part of me. And I acknowledge that, and I can't deny that is, like you said earlier, that is another event that we went through that brought us to where we are today. You and I can have such frank, open conversations, and it's partially because of that experience. Yeah.
No, I mean, you and I have a tremendous amount of grace for each other. And I think that makes us successful. Like, if you make a mistake, and I have this mindset that it's not a mistake, that it's just an advancement towards success.
It's a very different attitude about failure.
Now, it'd be different if you didn't reflect on it and change your behavior.
Oh, sure. Like,
right?
If I wasn't that, yeah.
Yeah, if you're I'm not talking about being reckless. I'm talking about people that that you make a mistake or you fail despite your best intentions and your best efforts. Because that's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I want to foster an environment where that can happen.
There are a lot of rainmakers that don't feel that way. There are a lot of rainmakers that feel like if I have to take that shovel back or I have to take that piece back, or if you failed, in such a massive way, you're gone. One instance and you're gone. And I've heard that before. And that's a fearful place to live. And you're not going to find anybody who's willing to take risks or put themselves out there or go above and beyond for you if they're worried about losing their job every day.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think of the flip side of that maybe I think admin can be pretty critical of their rainmakers and their decisions and their behavior and not have as much grace. And that creates an environment that's a little prickly at times. I've seen that.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. No, I believe that. Yeah.
I mean, grace definitely has to be a two-way street thing.
Yeah. I would probably say 80% of the people I talk to are afraid they're going to lose their job. So they don't say certain things or acknowledge the elephant in the room because they're really afraid they could be let go. Even if the job market is such that you could go and get another job, which right now it is. You could find another job. I'm still finding a lot of people don't want to have the conversation about anything, about their salary, about maybe an inappropriate comment, about a hire that they don't think is right, about anything in the business. And when you're not willing to have those conversations and you live in that fear, I feel like that's the first thing a rainmaker could do or a team leader or a business owner to really look at their business, put their eyes on their business. You want the people in the trenches that are out there doing the work with you to be able to have open conversations with you about what's happening so you can see what's happening. Like, you as the owner can't see everything. You've got to have some help in that, right? Like,
yeah, no, we're not objective, and we can only see what we can see. And so I was just thinking about a conversation we had about this potential recruit and how apparently I pissed in his cornflakes. And what I mean by that is that he has a certain attitude about me that I don't feel is warranted, and he just doesn't seem to get over it. You can come to me and tell me all those things, and I'm not really that emotional about it. I'm not that upset about it. I'm upset about the potential loss of a working relationship with this person because of his inability to move beyond some things or some misperceptions. And at the same time, for me, like, I need to be able to hear that because there's truth in it. There's truth in his misperception, right? One of the things that I hate people that something that everybody says that I don't necessarily agree with always, and I think it's used too much, is the idea that perception is reality. I understand what that means, which is if that person believes it to be true, they operate that way, and that has an effect on you, and you have to, whether you like it or not, that's reality.
Yeah.
What I don't like about it is it's not a permission to act inauthentically or to not seek out truth or objectivity. And so like today, honestly, I loved that conversation. And just to help people understand, part of our process is before we hire you, you have to go to lunch with the team, and you ask questions and they ask questions. And then we get together afterward and we talk about it, how it went. And we did that today. We talked about how a lunch went with a recruit, and you were able to say a lot of things that maybe didn't reflect well on me as far as that person's perception of me and how warm and fuzzy I am, or how much of a cheerleader I am, or whatever the case is. That doesn't hurt me because I know I'm not those things. I'm more so than that person let on because he hasn't been in an environment to see it. But I'm not going to show up that way 100% of the time, for sure. And, you know what? But then I go and that's a different podcast about the lesson I learned from that. But I love your ability. I love that we have the relationship where you can come in and say those things.
Because you know that what I appreciate about and why, I mean, obviously I understand what he's saying, and I hope that you understand by having that conversation, the support that you have from us.
I do.
Yeah, because I was like, I don't want to hire someone who's not all in. This is not just Margaret, the leader. Margaret, I know. I
love that everybody on the team said that. And I know that we all have each other's backs. And we all have foibles and quirks.
That's a good word.
And foibles and quirks.
That'd be the name of
this podcast, Foibles and Quirks. Yeah. No, but favorite failures is so sexy.
Yeah, it is sexy.
Anyway, my point, Margaret, I do appreciate you. I appreciate that you can say that. I also appreciate my ability. And we talked about this too, right? I was so reactionary when you met me. Like,
you're very different now. Yeah.
Man, you poked me with a stick and you got the claws. And I was too reactionary. And it really, since my separation, divorce, and since reinventing myself, I asked you, I'm 180 degrees different from that.
You know what?
now.
I'm just thinking as you're saying that too, how cool is it to talk about this? Because I'm a highly sensitive, emotional person, as are a lot of other admin, and they don't think that they can work with people that are reactive. And we worked through it. We got through it. And I don't think that's talked about enough, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. I was probably one of the few people that could do that with you, come out for the better of it, both of us afterwards. And yes, I'm emotional. Yes, I'm sensitive. Yes, I'm empathetic. And that helped me to see past those times when you were reactive. I didn't see the reaction. I felt it for sure, and I don't like reactive people at all. But I was able to work through that because I knew what your intentions were behind that reaction.
Well, I spent more on therapy than I spent on college, so that might have been a difference maker too.
That definitely, yeah. I'm always working on ourselves.
All right, thanks for listening, guys, through our favorite failures as we wrap up 2019. And as always, we're going to ask you to hit us back. We love the social interaction, the social engagement, when you guys tell us what you like and how this has affected you and what changes you're going to make. So we'd like to hear which of these failures you maybe struck a chord with you the most.
Yeah.
And
I want to do a special shout out real quick to Elizabeth from Reno. She's going to share this with her market center. And if there's anything you guys can do for us, when you ask me what you can do, I usually tell you, share your favorite episode with some of your fellow admin or rainmakers or business owners in different industries. That's what you can do for us, because this podcast is all about providing value and having tough conversations. And if you want to know how you can help get the word out, that is how you can do it. And so Elizabeth did that in a really big way. And she's just, shout out to Elizabeth. Is all
shout
I gotta
out
say.
to Elizabeth.
Yep.
Our next caller is Elizabeth from Reno.
We could take callers. That would be amazing. We might have to consider that.
And now people are going to have to call in on a hotline.
Yeah.
Margaret, let's go to the hotline.
Can it be the
And then
bat phone,
someone
please?
in a...
Hey, this is Elizabeth from Reno. I want to share this podcast with my entire office.
Margaret says, oh, that's amazing.
Oh, God, that sounds like a dream.
I know.
Can we
See?
do that? Yeah,
That's where we're headed. We're headed towards the hotline.
I'm doing it.
Hashtag headed to the hotline. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.